In this video, I'm going to show you how to install vertical fire blocking for your basement remodel. So we started our basement remodel, and the very first thing I need to do is fire blocking. So fire blocking is required by code, and it is simply some type of material you add in certain spots to stop the spread or to slow the spread of fire. And it generally comes in either vertical fire blocking, which I'm going to show you how to install in this video, or horizontal fire blocking, which stops the spread of fire along the wall. So this stops it from going from sort of up to down, or down to up. So how this works is this is my exterior wall, and fire blocking is required along the entire outside perimeter wall wherever I'm doing framing. And so the idea is, if I were to say stand up a 2x4 wall in front, either against the wall or even out from it. This particular wall has a PVC pipe on it, so I would say I'd stand the 2x4 wall in front of the pipe. And then the idea is, if there's a fire, let's say at an outlet on this wall someplace, well, it has all this space behind the 2x4 where it can breathe, and then it has a chimney effect where the smoke and the exhaust can then go right up your 2x4s, right out these exhaust joints. So this section has a fire block, and this section I haven't completed yet. But if this 2x4 were here, this would be able to basically allow the fire in your wall to have a chimney, to be a very efficient fire, and to cause a lot of destruction and spread very quickly. And so by adding some fire blocking here, some wood, and this wood goes from my sill plate out until where I'm going to do my 2x4. So I'm going to have a 2x4 wall here. That's how wide this needs to be. What this prevents now is, if I have a fire, it won't be able to get into these joist spaces. The smoke won't be able to come up. I'll have to do some fire blocking on side to side. We'll do that. That's called horizontal fire blocking. We'll do that in a future video. But what it does is it slows the spread and the growth of that fire and allows your family to get out of the home safely. All right, so fire blocking material is generally either drywall, like a gypsum board, or plywood. Our local township allows us to use 3/8 inch thick plywood. I'm using 1/2 inch thick CTX I got at 84 Lumber, and this has been treated with a special fire retardant chemical. So it's actually kind of sort of designed for fire blocking. And the challenge with my home, and this may be the same with your home, is what do you do with all the wires that are run against these sill boards, and how do you integrate the fire blocking with the wiring? And so this video, I'm going to show you how to cut the boards out, how to measure and cut them out, and then how to install them such that you get a clean looking and proper installation with your wiring. So I've got about half the basement done with this fire blocking, the vertical fire blocking. I'm going to have to go around through the rest of the basement. So in this video, I'm going to show you what this process looks like. So the first thing I'm going to do here is try to pull all these Romex wires out of this wire organizer. I don't need this anymore. I'm going to go ahead and add one later on, but for now, this is in the way of the fire blocking board. So the wire needs to come out, and this thing needs to come off. With the wires out of the organizer, I'm going to go ahead and use a hammer or a crowbar to pull these organizers right off that sill plate. And we'll need them completely off. So with the wires pulled out of the way, now I can measure to see how wide I need to cut my fire block board. To make this easier, I made up a jig. And the reason I did that is because on this particular wall, my foundation wall and my sill boards are just about flush. But on every different wall I have in my basement, these sill boards are set back some distance further, and it varies from wall to wall. And my fire blocking board actually needs to hit this sill gasket right at where it meets the joist and come out. So I'd have to be measuring each one out. So I made a little jig to make that easier. And so it's just a piece of scrap plywood. And what I did is I marked off 2 inches for the thickness of my insulation, and then 3.5 inches for my framing. So if I have a wall that doesn't have a pipe, I can actually just put this against the concrete and then mark off the joist. Now this particular wall has a pipe on it, and I need my framing to be in front of the pipe. And so I made a different side that includes the 2 inches of insulation, the pipe, and another 3.5 inches for my 2x4 framing. And so what I can do is I can lift these wires out of the way, I can put this against the concrete, and I can then mark where the board, actually right here, it's going to coincide with this line here. Okay, so now I know how far out from this wall I need the vertical fire blocking to go, and I can take a tape measure and measure from the sill plate out. And for this particular wall, it's 9 3/8. So what I'm going to do is cut an 8 foot long strip that's 9 3/8 inches wide, and then I can get ready to install that. So for this next part, I'm going to be marking off where these wires would come through this fire blocking board. So what I'm going to do is take my pencil and just mark where it crosses through. So this board's about 1/2 inches thick. So anywhere it crosses through that line, I'm going to mark it. So just going to go down. With the lines marked, now what I can do is measure, using my tape measure, how far in those marks are from the end of the board. So with my notches cut in my plywood, I can now hold it up and nail it in with my framing nailer. Challenge here is to get the wires that I know are coming in and out of this to line up with the holes I cut in this fire blocking. Now this one's pretty easy because I only had 2 spots, but a couple of these other boards had them every couple feet or so, and that was a challenge. With that held up, I can just go down the board and nail this in every joist. So we got our fire blocking installed. The only thing I need to do now is clean up the wiring and add some expanding foam. So this wire hanging down like this is completely unsat. So what I need to do is put it into some kind of wire organizer. And I'm going to use one of these red ones I bought at Lowe's. And each of these little rungs on this ladder hold about 2 wires. And so what I can do is I can install that right up against my fireboard every so many feet. If there's anything else that looks a little sloppy, I can always use some zip ties. The last thing I'll need to do is plug these holes and these notches I cut out of the fireboard. And I'm going to do that with some fire blocking expanding foam. Now it is like the orange expanding foam, and my township inspector specifically said you need to use the fire blocking foam. You can't just use expanding foam for this, although I have heard they are the exact same contents except one's a different color. But regardless, I need to go back and fill these, and then this seam where this board meets the sill plate, I will also put a bead of that expanding foam or fire blocking caulk. Same goes for this seam where my one board met my previous board. I'll put a bead of caulk there. And then once that's done, I'm good to go with insulation and my framing. I'll also have to integrate the horizontal fire blocking, which I'll show you in the next video we do in a couple weeks, where we'll be doing that alongside the insulation installation. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below, and like and subscribe to this channel if you thought this video was helpful, and we'll see you next time.